Good to go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chantal with the National Special District Association. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes. We had over 100 people register for this great webinar, so we're just going to give a little bit of time for people to join in. Oh, okay. It's 12 o'clock Mountain Time. Welcome, everybody. Again, my name is Chantal. I'm with the National Special District Association, and thank you for joining us in our webinar series for this year. We're really thrilled today to have the Ferguson Group be able to spend a little bit of time with you on something that I know is so important to everybody, especially in your hazard mitigation planning and your preparedness work with fire suppression and response. I've been driving through Colorado today, and I noticed this morning passing by areas off the highway that are charred, and it made me think about the wildfires that we're having across the country, and just reminding myself how important it is to know in advance before something happens what your resources are and who to call and how to find out. And so let me introduce Amanda and Dan, who are going to take this on. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to turn off my camera just to take away some of the visual and let you go. So Amanda, Dan, go ahead. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Amanda Wiley. I'm a grants analyst with the Ferguson Group. The Ferguson Group is contracted with NSDA to provide grant services to you lovely member districts. And I personally work on the research end of things, helping to identify those grant programs that align with the needs that you put into the project idea portal. I'm the one responding. And our managing partner of grants, Christy Moore, is also on the team. She couldn't be with us today, unfortunately, but she is also on your NSDA grant services team. I'll pass to Dan to introduce himself and kick us off.
Sure. And my name is Dan Miglin. I am based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, but I'm the TFG grant specialist. My specialty is public safety. That includes police, fire, EMS, that sort of thing. My background is 30 years law enforcement in North Carolina. But in that time, I've spent over the past almost 23 years writing public safety grants for multiple jurisdictions across the United States, especially in North Carolina, but very familiar with a lot of the FEMA grants and some of the public safety grants that are available through other federal agencies as well. So I've been with TFG for about 2 years and look forward to helping you any way I can. So we're going to jump into our presentation here. Our agenda today is basically going to be, federal, as you see, federal funding landscape. We're going to let you know what's going on because obviously unless you're living in a closet, it's hard not to pay attention to all the commotion that's going on in Washington, D.C. this year. And we are a nonpartisan organization. We work with whoever is involved, and we're here to help give you some guidance, navigate the federal landscape as it exists today. And it's not to say that what exists today will exist tomorrow, but we're pretty certain about some of the things that are happening in the world of public safety. And this is something that you're very interested in. And the good news is, no matter what you're hearing on the news or anywhere else, social media, public safety is a priority of this administration. And so whether it's called FEMA or something else, we can be sure that those funds are still going to be available to the agencies that need them. And so we're here to help you identify how those processes are going to look. We're also going to take a program deep dive into some of the organizations or some of the grants in particular, some of the details of the grants of what you need to be considerate of, what you might be applicable for as far as an organization, types of grants, or what your needs are. And we're going to finally close this out with some best practices that are true with public safety grants as well as grants in general. That's one of the things that we like to do is help our clients prepare for what to expect in the grant field, especially with federal grants. At the end of the day, whether it's public safety or public works or parks and recreation and so forth, there's certain best practices that are true with most types of grants. So we're going to kind of quickly and briefly overview those for you to help you put together the best proposal, most compelling proposal that would benefit your organization. So we're going to jump into the federal landscape and for fire and suppression response projects. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or jump in. We are going to reserve some time at the end for a question and answer. So if you want to document your question and ask at the end, that's fine too. But we're going to be mindful of everybody's time and try and get through this presentation and make sure that you have the information you need to put together a good project proposal down the road. The key federal agencies involved in most of the fire suppression in response grants are the Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security, which FEMA falls under. There's also, as you can see here, I'm not going to state everything that's written on the slide. You have it there. Department of Agriculture, Department of Interior. A lot of wildfire grants are through agriculture and Department of Interior. We have Department of Health and Human Services for preparedness and so forth. But you probably, depending on what state you're in, you probably also have a lot of pass-through funds that are available through your state administering agencies. So if you don't know who those agencies are or the people in as points of contact for those agencies, I would strongly encourage you to identify them and reach out to them because those agencies, student-funded directive agencies, often can get their funds that they need by contacting the right people at the state administering agency. And that usually involves most agencies. Larger agencies, are sometimes kind of earmarked for certain funds, and those funds are going to gravitate towards it. But some of the rural agencies or mid-sized agencies often have to go through organizations at the state level. So it's important for you to identify who those people are. And if you have questions about that for a particular state, can help you identify those. Next slide. Next slide, Amanda. Thanks. So as you know, since the current administration taken over, we have had a series of executive orders that have out since January, basically. And a lot of them have impacts on grants. And so, I mean, it's like you need a scorecard to keep up with it. It's not to say it's bad or all good, but it is what it is. And so one of the things that is we learn to adapt on the fly. And so the way we adapt is by helping our clients adapt as well. So you see executive order that was signed in June of 2025. basically aims to reduce the regulatory barriers to forest management activities, streamline environmental review processes for fire prevention projects, and enhance coordination between federal, state, and local agencies. We're talking about prevention activities such as prescribed burns, thinning operations, fuel reduction, so forth. Local governments may face increased responsibilities for wildfire management and coordination, requiring additional training, resources, and administration. So again, we've heard this, and it's hard to avoid it, but there is a push through the administration, and none of this is etched in stone yet. That's one of the things we have to be clear about. There is a push to eliminate FEMA or rename FEMA or have FEMA funds being divvied out to the states and have the states take care of their own management, disaster management, wildfire management, and so forth. So right now it is talk. It is almost noise, because right now there are laws in effect, and there are certain funds that are in effect that there's no get around, and so these things are available, and they're not going to go away. So anything that you're hearing about changes and so forth may happen down the road, but they're not happening as it is today. So we want to make people aware that they shouldn't be concerned about certain things that haven't happened yet, because they may not ever happen. FEMA status, as you can see here, they release executive orders regarding preparedness, state and local level. What has happened, and that we're making sure you're aware of, is that certain grants have been either frozen or eliminated altogether. For example, the BRIC award, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities. This program had been funding different types of projects, very high level and expensive projects. And so these funds were removed through the executive order of President Trump. But again, one of the things we tend to caution is with every change of administration, a new president comes in and they take things that maybe the previous administration has had in place, and they slap their own name on it, or they reallocate those funds towards something that is similar but not exact to what it was from the predecessor. So in other words, it's a political organization. Grants are unfortunately at the mercy of the wave of political action that's occurring in the United States, and that's the way it's always been. It may not be as in your face as it has been over the past decade, but that's what social media and information that's passed down through the news and so forth. That's what we have today. However, as I told you, and this is true, the Trump administration, public safety is a big priority for the administration. They've announced plans to phase out FEMA, but after the hurricane season, but it's not clear how that's going to look like. So people should not be concerned per se that these funds are just going to go away and they're going to evaporate and no one's going to ever have access to it. That's not true. What it's going to look like down the road, or what the requirements are going to be, or what even the program is called, is still uncertain right now. And so a lot has to happen. Plus, FEMA cannot be dismantled without congressional approval because it's a law. So it's not as easy as just saying, well, we want to get rid of it, so it's gone. So it's just one of those things where it's a lot of noise, and we're just trying to help you navigate through the noise. Next slide. So What we're here to talk about are some of the fire programs which your jurisdictions may be interested in. What we can tell you about it, and I have a lot of clients who I've helped with SAFER and AFG grants, and other grants in general. And there has been a delay. If you're aware of the federal landscape this year, or earlier this year, there was a freeze on all federal grants, okay, and through the DOGE, Department of Efficiency, that was put in place, and that was it lasted approximately 4 months, and because of that, all the federal grants were frozen, and that as far as new grant announcements, everything was delayed. Again, they were delayed. They were not eliminated entirely. They were delayed to make sure that some of the language that were in the solicitations aligned with the Trump administration in regards to some of the language in there. And we're going to be talking about some of the language and so forth later on in this presentation. But because there was a delay, that means there was a delay in an announcement. There was a delay in getting the solicitations out. And then there was a delay in getting the peer reviews done. And ultimately, it delays in getting the awards announced. So if you did put in for AFG or SAFER or FP&S grant, the common question I get almost daily is, when are they going to be announced? Well, the official word is they should be announced by September 30th. And if you've applied for these grants before, then you also know that these are sometimes staggered announcements, because the Assistance to Firefighter grant, again, there's like millions and millions of dollars available, but also goes to hundreds and hundreds of different agencies. And so they don't announce them all in one lump sum. It usually filters out over the course of a month or two. So the fiscal year 2024 award announcements are expected to be made by September 30th. And I can tell you that I check on this every day. And there's a source that I have at FEMA who gives me an update. And his update over the past month has been the same, which is they are coming. They have been under review. The SAFER grants have been under review. The other grants have been under review, in that they are going through the process, and their goal is to get them announced, or at least the announcements start by September 30th for those applications that were due over the summer. And I know SAFER, or the Assistance to Firefighter grant for 24, it was due December 20th of last year, and they still haven't been announced yet, but they're coming. They are coming, and all we can do is just encourage you to be patient and understand that we're kind of dealing with making up time as quickly as they can. We have no control over that. Nobody does. It is the way it is. However, they also assured me that though this fiscal year 24 grants have been delayed in their announcement and so forth, the fiscal year 25 solicitations are expected to be released on time. So that means late November, early December is the target date of when the new AFG for fiscal year 25 solicitation is expected to be released. And so if again, these things don't all happen at one time. SAFER and fire prevention and safety usually follow after Assistance Firefighter grant, which means you can probably figure on February that maybe the new fiscal year 25 solicitations will be released. But the fiscal year 24 for SAFER in particular should be released probably in early 2026. So it's just something to be mindful of. It's playing catch up, and that is just unavoidable. And hopefully by 2026, you'll see things start to stabilize and normalize as far as schedule, and we can predict when some of these things will be awarded more accurately. As you can see, there's also a community facilities and direct loan and grant program, and it's available through the Department of Agriculture on a rolling basis. And of course, there's a lot of stipulations on some of these, and we'll go through some of the slides that'll kind of give you a little bit of insight of what they're available for. But that's what we're doing right now is the deep dives. We'll go on to the next one. So let's just talk about the AFG right now. If you've never applied for this before, this is almost like a catch-all type of grant for firefighters. Again, there are thousands of awards issued annually for this program. It is one of the big three that I usually phrase it, and it's perhaps the biggest of the big three because it's available for training, equipment, vehicles, apparatus, fitness, wellness activities, modifications to facilities, not construction, new construction, but modifications, renovations, as long as you can articulate that it's going to have some sort of positive impact on maybe the health and well-being of the firefighters who work there. For example, the self-contained breathing apparatus. I've written grants that have been funded for AFG grants that were to create a ventilation system to help the diesel fumes of the trucks escape the building without putting firefighters at risk, and do other projects that involve, renovations, upgrading the facilities, especially aged facilities. So who can apply for this? Special districts can apply for it, as well as regular fire departments, EMS, and state fire training academies. There is a cost match involved in this, and it varies depending on the size of your jurisdiction. And you can kind of see that on the slide there, anywhere from 5 to 15%. But traditionally, these awards come out year after year, and they are large number of awards. As far as 2,000 awards were issued or scheduled to be issued to support projects for fiscal year 24. And you can see it's almost $300 million. So it's a lot of money. Again, construction's not eligible, but renovation, depending on what type of renovation, may be eligible. And it's one of those things where when you apply for these things, sometimes it does not hurt if you choose to do these on your own. TFG is always willing to help you with this process. But if you choose to apply for these on your own, it always makes good sense to reach out to the help desk and ask them questions about things you're uncertain of, because you don't want to put together an application that includes unallowable activities or doesn't make sense to the peer reviewers. So that's like a standard rule of thumb is make friends with your help desk and your grant managers. And also with the AFG, the best thing you can do, and this comes straight from them, is apply for the high priority items. They give a whole list of the high priority items that they will fund, depending on what type of organization you have. And you should stick to that list because, frankly, low and medium, low priority items stand no chance. I mean, just being honest with you, no chance of being funded. Medium priority, you would have to make a very highly compelling argument to have a medium priority project that is paying for medium priority items funded. And it's just one of those things where you should really strategically look at what your high priority needs are in relation to the solicitation. Next slide. The SAFER grant. If you've applied for SAFER grants in the past, over 2 years ago, and tried to apply for one this year, you were probably quite surprised to see that SAFER did add a cost share requirement. SAFER grants, as far as hiring of new personnel, it also involves recruitment and retention activities, but only for volunteer and combined departments. But as a standard, for most people apply for the hiring activity. And the thing this year is they required a cost match of 25% of total costs for the first and second year, and 65% for the third year, which means in the year 3, you had to pay 65%, and the federal funds would only be 35%. This actually surprised a lot of people who applied for them this year. I've actually had clients who wanted to pursue it and then backed out of it because they couldn't afford the match. So it's one of the things where I think they're trying to instill greater investment or buy-in from the organizations who are receiving these funds, that they will sustain these programs and these positions when they're brought in, rather than getting 3 years of free money and then cutting the positions or doing a reduction in force in year 4. So this was a big surprise to a lot of people, especially the 65% in year 3. I realize that 25%, a lot of grants have a 25% match throughout the life of the grant, but 65% is a big bite. But think of it like the COPS program, and this is what I tell my public safety agencies. The COPS program has a similar formula where they want to see gradual increasing responsibility for sustaining the programs. And to do that, it usually involves you'll get more federal funds up front than you will on the back end. The back end, they expect you be taking a greater chunk of the expense and have the feds wean their way out of it. So also, you got to remember that these funds are for hiring in new additional entry-level firefighters. Entry level, it's not to pay for ranking positions or people with advanced skills. Whatever the lowest position is on your organizational chart as far as fire suppression activities, that is what you have to ask for. So again, it involves being strategic about how you approach these grants. Again, as it has been for years, the highest priority items are people who are seeking to become compliant with NFPA standards 1710, 1720. So whatever activities you're doing with these positions, whether it's firefighting, getting 4 or getting 4 on, I think it's a apparatus, a first response apparatus, reducing your response time, whatever the argument you're trying to make as to why you need these positions, you need to always include the fact that how is this going to bring you up to compliance with NFPA standards? Again, TFG can help you with these discussions or putting the application together. We have experts in it. I work on these quite a bit. And so, but we also have other grant specialists on our team who'd be willing to help you put together a really compelling proposal. And we have a good success rate with these. Next slide. Fire prevention and safety is the third of the big 3 from FEMA. Again, it's fire education. If you've had these before, then you know it's fire education, code enforcement, arson investigators, health and safety programming, and so forth. You're eligible for it. It's a 5% match, whether cash or in kind. There may not be 200 million available, but there's still, big chunk of change. Last year it was 32.4 million. for 100 awards, and some of them received a maximum amount of 1.5 million. They're still waiting to be awarded, but we can expect that you're going to see some that are at, less than $1 million. Obviously, most of them will be less than $1 million, but depending on what your size of your jurisdiction, the impact of the program, that you can apply for as much as 1.5 million. All proposals must submit a vulnerability statement describing steps taken to determine and address that vulnerability. A community risk assessment should be used. So right now, some of these grants are going to be, as we talked about earlier, the SAFER and the FP&S program are expected to be released sometime in early 2026. Now is the time to start looking at the previous year's solicitations and deciding, okay, do we have a project that the scope matches this solicitation? Because that's what it's all about, folks. It's matching your program specifics with the NOFO, notice of funding opportunity. So now, when grants are not being, there's no new grants have been released yet, and we're all kind of in a waiting period to see what's going to be funded and what's not. Now is the time that you should be having these strategic planning sessions with the powers that be at your organization to determine, okay, what do we need and when do we need it? At TFG, we encourage people to look over a year down the road, because whatever you apply for in early 2026 won't even be available to you until at the earliest October of 2026. So we're not looking for something that you're going to need in 26, but more along the lines of looking for something you're going to need in 2027 and beyond. So these are some of the things in the AFG, pivoting back to that just a moment. It may be, if it's an apparatus that you're looking for funding for, then you should be getting quotes for these apparatus, identifying what your needs are, and putting together your planning right now so that we can respond to these solicitations when they come out. Because one of the things we've also seen is that the turnaround time on some of these grants have been very quick. In the past year, most of the solicitations we've seen for whether it's FEMA grants or any other grants had been anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, which generally means you need to have your stuff put together and ready to roll to put together the application. Hopefully, historically, it had been a little longer, maybe 2 months, to put together an application for some of these grants, because they involve a lot of data. They may involve a lot of homework and research to put together your quotes and gather the information about your staffing or your calls for service and things like that to justify the need. But at the end of the day, you still have to put it all together in an articulable form and respond to the questions in the application, and it takes time. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of time. So we'll move on to the next one. So the Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program. Again, this may not apply to everybody, but for those special districts that are considered rural areas, no more than 20,000 residents, according to the latest U.S. Census. But they have a loan and a grant program. So it just to make people aware that allowable expenses, because we know that construction of new buildings and so forth are not easy to find grants for. A lot of those take other sources of funding to support, but this particular one does provide for public safety services such as fire departments, trucks, engines, vehicles, other equipment. And so it's kind of a narrow eligibility list, but for those who are eligible, it's something that they should seriously look at. There's no match involved, and communities who are underserved or disadvantaged or have low income levels. There's a lot of requirements, and in rural communities, there's actually, there's specialized funding reserved for those communities. So it's something to look at. I don't know who all is represented here as far as your jurisdiction. But if you do meet these requirements, I would encourage you to look at this, because this is a grant that is available annually. So it's not going to go away. Next slide. Okay, so in just to sum up some of these things here, what we talked about, there are some areas that are one of the biggest requests we have is, can you find us a grant that'll pay to build a new fire department? Well, unfortunately, really not many of those exist. There are more available to help pay for some renovations, but not everything. There are, construction and renovations, are just hard to find specific grants for. So we really have to hunker down and look and make sure that we're uh, scoping this out properly. But there are other things that if you strategize on how you're going to budget your funds, then you might want to focus on, putting your eggs in the basket of equipment, apparatus replacement, staffing, training, community engagement, vehicle acquisition. It may not be all in 1 year, but if you put this out over a few years, you might be able to get where you're trying to go. And that might be part of your capital improvement plan, your strategic plan for your organization. But the low-hanging fruit, what I would call, is equipment, apparatus, and in column one, they're most commonly funded. Why? Because there's more grants available for that, whether it's through FEMA, whether it's through state grants, even foundation grants help supplement the costs of some of these. A lot of the grants may not have any match involved. So it's just one of those things where we would have to sit down with you individually and just kind of strategize of what are your high priority needs and when are those needs absolutely essential. If it's a year down the road, then we can help you look for grants that might, fit some of those needs, and then you can offset or plan your budget to help pay for the needs that grants won't meet, because it's not going to pay for everything. That's why I always caution people about grants. Is grants are great, but they're intended to be seed funding. They're not intended to be forever more funding. It's to help you get to some things or achieve certain goals that maybe you absolutely have to get, but you just don't have the financial resources to do at that particular time. That's what the grants are for, but they're not supposed to just sustain you forevermore. So it's one of those things where eventually your jurisdiction is going to have to put some skin in the game and pay for some of the expenses to sustain these public safety programs. And the fact is, in most communities, public safety is the number one thing that citizens are concerned about the most, which means you automatically have a built-in argument for how you can go about approaching, the board of commissioners or council or whomever it is you have to go to increase your budgets, and to come at it from that angle. But grants are your doing your due diligence and being good stewards of taxpayers' money by finding grants to pay for the other things that you also need, and offset the costs in that form. So next slide. Okay.
Dan? Chantal, did you have something?
Oh, yeah, I think you touched on this, but just wanted to make sure you got to the question in the chat.
I'm sorry.
About funding grants that have already been submitted. And any update on hearing about those or anything like that?
Let me look at the chat. I actually
Yeah,
haven't looked
any
at the
update on
chat.
funding grants that have already been submitted, such as AFG and Safer?
So yes, so as I said early on, I actually have a almost a standard email conversation with the guy at FEMA who's in when you send an email to FEMA or fire grants through FEMA. The AFG and the FPNS they're under review, final reviews. Awards will be coming probably most likely announced towards the end of the year, if not early 2026. The AFG grants that were submitted in December, I think it was December 20th of 2024, we should be seeing announcements start to come out by the end of this month. So within the next 20 days, we should start seeing some movement on that. Again, it is one of those things where these are not going away. And the monies that were allocated for these funds are still going to be there. And again, it is a priority with the current administration. So I don't expect to see anything less than what was promised. So the delay has been because of it's a trickle down effect of the freeze that happened earlier in the year. So all we can do is be patient. They're going through their diligence.
Great. And then the second question I had was about the cost share or a match requirement. Going up to 65% in the third year is quite high. Is there anything in the NOFA or in the rules and regs that allow for an appeal process or a secondary review based on ability to pay?
Yes, there are waivers allowed, and it's a matter of putting together an application. I want to say that because if you've ever done one of the waiver requests, they are an application within the application. I can promise you that it's like a 21-page synopsis. I had to do that one for another agency, and they're not guaranteed. So it's one of those things where you really need to put a lot of effort into your justification as to why you couldn't support the 65% in year 3. The first 2 years are 25%. But unfortunately, that is something that happened just this past year. And it is kind of a shock to a lot of people because the year before that, it was zero match for 3 years. So
Great. Thank you. I know we're anxious to get to more Q&A, so I'll be very brief with these general best practices across all programs. As Dan mentioned, there's a strategy with grants, and most folks kind of fall into one of these two categories. It's the one-time applicant versus the more strategic grant applicant. That's not to say that either of these two wouldn't be successful in seeing their proposal funded, but one just has a better chance of being successful in juicing the process for all it's worth. So that one-time applicant is a bit reactive. They see the NOFO and they jump on it for a very limited project. They're able to pull together the information, but there's kind of some limited internal capacity for grants, and they haven't really aligned it perhaps with their master plan or CIP. And this just doesn't really generally set one up for success in the long term. The more strategic grant applicant is thinking far in advance, as Dan mentioned. They're tying it into their capital improvement plans, their master plans. They're reaching out to the community, seeing who they need to partner with, seeing what needs are within their organization. They're looking into the future about what elements of their vehicles, their buildings that will need to see funding soon and planning in advance. and looking at the programs that are available and what would be fundable under, the big three or perhaps other fire grant programs, and keeping track of when that timeline is. So we generally advocate for the more strategic grant applicant pathway, but you're already doing that as you're here on this webinar, so kudos. Getting as much information as you can in advance. Another part of putting together a good application is describing your project well. And a large chunk of that is taking scope of the political landscape that we're in, the funding landscape, and making sure that you're describing your project in an attractive way to the funding agency. And that means avoiding some terminology that might raise some red flags with this administration. It's well documented now that DEI might not be the best thing to put in your applications at this point. But other terminology that might be received well would be focusing on, local needs, community capacity building, compliance, cost effectiveness, facility hardening, emergency operations. These are all things that funding agencies are prioritizing, the administration is prioritizing. So we want to hone in on those phrases, language that is in line with what the new administration is seeking. And lastly here, just want to highlight some quick budget considerations. It's important, and it might seem obvious, but we want to be very careful about distinguishing federal versus non-federal contributions when it comes to match, identifying cash versus in-kind match sources, providing documentation where necessary, and avoiding including indirect costs as match unless allowed and documented. This is just really part of reading the notice of funding opportunity very carefully. And because each program is different and has different requirements. So it really requires you to sit down with the NOFO and scan through about what is allowable and what is not. And some common pitfalls we want to avoid is padding the budget or underestimating the costs on the other side. So we don't have to go back and negotiate. We don't want to include some unallowable items when it's explicit in the NOFO that they are not allowed. And we want to make sure that totals match across all documents that you're submitting. And this might, again, seem obvious, but it could be the difference between a successful application and an unsuccessful one. So these are always things that we want to be aware of. And that brings us to the end here. I just want to highlight quickly that we do have a grant project idea portal where you can submit your needs and we can take a look at what programs might be applicable to your project and do a little bit of research and send it back to you. You can request some grant guides if you're just looking to get an idea of the funding landscape for a particular topic. And you can book a consultation with us directly and we can talk through your project and take it from there. All these resources are on the nationalspecialdistricts.org website under grant services. It'll be on that right side menu and you can go directly from there to reach us. And that's it. We'll start Q&Aing again. I know I'm seeing some chats.
I'm not seeing any questions right at the moment, but Amanda, why don't you? Oh, there. Okay, good. The NSDA grants email in case you have follow-up questions that will go to Amanda. And also the Ferguson group does host other webinars through their their annual process with all of their clients. And so if you are interested in finding out about other topics, please reach out to Amanda too. Okay, we got one question from Marissa. If you're learning how to submit grants and never have, do you have resources of where to start and how to start? And my addition to that is, as a member of NSDA, is that the kind of support that the Ferguson group gives districts?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you would like to join into our office hours, we can definitely help guide your process as you start navigating what grant programs you might be interested in and the projects that you have lined up. We do have grant guides again, that have an overview of the programs that are out there, so you can start getting a sense of what is required of you as an applicant for some of the major ones. But again, I would just encourage you to come to office hours and we can talk it through your specific situation and guide as best we can. Dan, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I would just add to that it would be important for you to reach out to us because everybody is sometimes the grant portals are difficult to navigate. And these days, for every grant, there's a separate grant portal, it seems. And I mean, they're not always the most user friendly. So we have experience in dealing with just about every type of grant portal that's out there. And we can work through it together and just kind of diagnose your needs and give you a little bit of confidence and some support in putting together a good well prepared application. Because again, it does take time to put these things together, and you hate to think that you're always behind the eight ball. So feel free to reach out to us for support. That's what we're here for. Is we can really help you build your own confidence if you're doing your individual grant writing. And we even offer evaluate like a third-party review where we can review and edit for you. That's a service that we provide and give you some suggestions. So it's hard to start out these days, but just got to take it slow and be meticulous about it. But as Amanda indicated earlier, uh, read the NOFO. That's the starting point. Read the NOFO and get a highlighter. I print out NOFOs and I highlight them. I'm old school. I highlight every critical thing that has to be in there. And above all, put everything that is required in the NOFO, put it in there, or at least address it. I'm a peer reviewer in addition to a grant specialist. I do peer reviews on the side. And I can't tell you how many points you lose by not putting in the things that are required in the peer review session. And it doesn't have to be like it was the best thing that you ever put in paper. But the fact that you don't have it at all, you lose all the points. So that is my number one suggestion for any beginning or even experienced grant writer is do not ignore required things in the NOFO.
So Dan, there's a question. Does a fire district have a chance of getting a mitigation grant if all the property is privately owned?
Good question. I can't honestly answer that. I would have to look at that, and Kevin, I can definitely get your contact information and we can explore that. Certainly not going to tell you yes or no without really knowing for sure. So I am making a note of that right now, and I will have an answer to you shortly. And Tim says depends on location. Good.
Great. So Kevin, why don't you just also send an email to that NSDA grants email, and that'll make sure it gets in.
Yep.
Oh, I see. So you're in Colorado near the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, and we'll make sure to share the recording and the PowerPoint. Amanda, if you make sure I get that, I'll put that up on our website, and we'll also send it out in a follow-up email to everybody. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you. Hopefully this got you thinking and planning. One thing I know, just to reiterate, which I try to say this again and again, that a lot of the federal deadlines are expedited. And so this kind of information and being prepared is really important because some of them you just have a week or 2 weeks to even do the application. And so you have to be really ready for when the NOFO comes out, to the time that you have to actually submit everything. Okay, oh, Angela, one more question. And I'll repeat the email address. There it is. Amanda just put it in the chat. Okay, Angela, you're a small water utility. Putting the pressure on you for typing. Oh, Amanda, you put the address into the chat for just the hosts and panelists. So you got to go back in and change it to everyone. Okay, so Angela, I think you might be asking, you're a small water utility. Can you partner with your local fire district to apply for these grants?
Partnerships are highly encouraged. I can tell you that no matter what type of grant you're applying for, partnerships and showing how it can benefit the greater community rather than just an agency or organization are highly encouraged. So any partnerships or support that you have or ways that you uh, work together for public safety or anything else is again, that is strongly encouraged.
And she did follow up with a second part of the question about fire hydrants specifically, but let me just add in and we'll get to the next question that these are perfect questions when you start getting into the details of your own need, to go into the idea portal on our website and get in touch with the Ferguson group. That's exactly why we have a contract with them, so they can hear your very specific questions and really get into the weeds about what you're looking for. So Angela,
And
if
let
you,
me,
oh, go ahead,
I'm
Dan.
sorry. And to piggyback on that, is you're right. We are not, though we may be specialists, we're not experts in everything. So there, you're going to ask some questions that sometimes we just don't know. And I have no problem in telling you, I don't know, but I'm going to find out for you. And that is our job. So if you got a specific question, we have resources, we have tools to be able to look quickly through some of the NOFOs because we've been doing this for a long, long time, and some of these NOFOs don't change very much, and that we can really kind of get into the weeds and figure out your specific things about the fire hydrants and so forth. That we can look at that specifically and do that legwork for you. That is what we're here for. So all these questions are great. One of the things I was actually telling my brother the other day, one of the things I love about my job is I learn as much as I'm able to help other people. I'm learning in the process about the way we do, where our organizations operate and so forth, and what's useful. So send us your information, send us your questions about specifics and in these little uh, fine-tooth type of scenarios, and we'll find the answers for you. And we'll also point you in the right direction without you having to do a lot of searching on your own.
Yeah. So we did have one more question from Bruce. Any grants from HHS that you know has been successful?
I think we'd have to know which HHS grants that you're asking about.
Yeah,
And we can
there's
get
a
back.
whole bunch of them.
Yeah, well then, okay, yeah. So Bruce, really, get an appointment with Amanda and Dan and really get into the details.
Yeah. I'd
Um,
also say too, I know I put the email in the chat, but I can't answer the chat for the whole group, unfortunately. I'm only able
okay,
to
I'm gonna
do
put it
direct
in right
messages.
now.
That's NSDA grants at tfgnet.com.
There we go. Okay. Okay, great. And might contact, yeah. Tim suggested calling the state administrative agency regarding hydrants, also sometimes USDA RD. If you are in Colorado, I know there's been a pause on the Energy Impact Assistance Fund, but that might be, in Colorado, that might be a state option for you through the Department of Local Affairs. Okay, great. Well, we're gonna wrap this up. I can't thank you enough, Dan, Amanda. Like you, Dan, I learned something new today, so thank you. And again, just to say it one more time, I will put all this information up on the website, and I'll grab your emails from Zoom and send you in a follow-up email later this week. So thank you very much. And the next one, check out on our website. The next one is on Washington, D.C. and the inside scoop on our federal advocacy work in November. So we hope you all join us at that time. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.